Well, you're welcome along. It's the football show on this Monday evening. A little later on, we're going to bring you some of our chat with Ronnie Whelan from yesterday's Off the Ball. But very happy to say that Pat Nevin is with us. It is a Monday. It has been a while. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Hope you can hear me okay. Setup's a wee bit weird this time, but no, all kind of good. And this side of, I was going to say the pond, but this side of the Irish Channel, it's strange, but nice and warm. So I've been out for a nice run today and just sitting laughing at Scottish football mostly at the moment because it's the silliest thing in the world.
We've been trying to unpick that and failing miserably, but I can say in short, it's a mess.
Shambles is the only word. And there's a phrase in business, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard, which is never waste a good crisis. And you get the feeling there's a few businessmen there that are thinking, right, okay, we've got a chance to get something out of this, so we're going to muck about with it. So they've come to an agreement that the bottom three divisions aren't going to go ahead. They're going to stop now. People are making decisions, understandably, for their own sake, to make sure that they're safe and secure for the future. They're getting their monies in early, etc. But they're trying to make this argument now that they're going to do league reconstruction. They've been talking about that for about 2 decades, and they reckon they can sort it out by a conference call with 14 different people over 3 weeks, which then has to be brought to ratified votes, which needs an 11-1 decision in their favour for the Premier League. Good luck, guys. No chance.
No, I wouldn't think so. There's a few things going on to touch on. It was quite interesting to see there this evening that FIFPro have been talking to footballers in England, Scotland and the Republic of Ireland, and reports of depression have doubled. Just, very worrying, and I'm sure in many ways in keeping with huge swathes of the population. So they surveyed 1,600 professionals, 22% of females and 13% of males all reported symptoms consistent with the diagnosis of depression. That's in England, Scotland and the Republic of Ireland. And I'm not surprised because for a huge number of pros, especially when you leave the top tier, financially the worries must be enormous. Their futures must be uncertain, to say the least, and they're struggling as much as any part of society.
Yeah, people forget they're just people. They're footballers, but then there's a huge swathe of the very, very wealthy ones who don't have to have finances as the first consideration, but they're actually the minority of most of them. The large majority of them have got a very short career. They earn pretty well for a fairly short period of time. They have to make sure that they plan and do well with that money when they can. There is a fear for everyone. I don't think they're certainly not any more at risk than the general population. I think we have to bring that up right away. I know that the PFA and various people are trying to make sure they help. I know that various players have suffered in the past, even before struggles and problems like this. But are they any different or anything special from the rest of the society? Well, no, they're exactly the same. So yes, concerned about them to the level that I would be concerned about general people in society. I have a number of people, as you well know yourself, who are involved in the medical profession that I know very well. And I just heard a story today. Brian McClare's a very good friend of mine, and I was talking to Brian a little bit earlier today. His daughter's a doctor as well, and the stories that are coming out from a lot of the patients that are stuck in, that are under pressure anyway beforehand, and the financial pressure, the mental pressure, everything put on top of it, and then told to isolate for 12 weeks. And you think, if you're sitting on the 17th floor, that window starts to look inviting. So, look, football's, consider it and work towards it and help as much as possible. Do that with the whole society.
Yeah, absolutely. A few things going on I do want to get your thoughts on as well. So the word sportswashing has entered the dictionary officially in the last couple of years. Newcastle fans wanted to be free of Mike Ashley for quite some time, and now that is going to happen. But they will pay a price. Saudi Arabian state money will take a massive holding of the club. Without getting into all the nuts and bolts, there are various human rights considerations when it comes to Saudi Arabia. There is the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post journalist who was critical of the Saudi government, walked into the consulate in Istanbul and was brutally murdered. And United Nations were unequivocal in saying that the Saudi Arabian state was responsible for the murder of that journalist. And that was a very high-profile affair. And now they're going to come in and take control of this club. the feeling is that the fit and proper persons test, whatever manifestation that has these days, is a mere formality, and they'll come in and take charge. And I'm sure a huge number of Newcastle fans think, well, look, listen, I just want them to run the football club well. But this is now very much a trend in sport, and increasingly it is a trend in the Premier League as well. They don't appear, Pat, to be taking any hardline stance on this.
No, I don't think they will. The authorities probably won't do so, because it's really taken on, a government, a state, and not just the Sovereign Wealth Fund where the money is coming from. I find it really difficult to have a great argument against it, because you dig into the past of a lot of people who own a lot of not just football clubs but organisations that are involved in sports around the world. You don't have to dig too deep before you find things that are very, very uncomfortable. And Newcastle fans, I know what they'll say in a kind of very glib way. Well, with anyone but Mike Ashley, we know they're going to say that, but that's to be too light and too flippant about it. These are serious things. And of course, they're going to say, well, have a look at the other clubs. Can you absolutely tell us the truth that even from where they got the money, where did each of the biggest clubs you can think of, where did they get the money? Was it got in what is a healthy way? And that's everything from, did you get it from your state? Did you actually go and get it from just borrowing and you ain't got the money anyway? And it's just, it's just a finance. It's nothing more than that. There's just about every big club has got questions to answer over that. And in the end, I saying to Newcastle fans, well, you need to deal with this more than anyone else. I think that's grossly unfair in Newcastle fans. If you turn down Saudi Arabia, which, if they did, I'd say, well done, carry on. It would maybe show a real good sign to people that they should have better human rights. We better start looking a lot of other places as well. You really have to look a lot of other places as well. It's a really tricky, murky and ugly world.
I was thinking of, I don't know, have you seen Succession yet? But Brian Cox's character, Logan Roy, is this media magnate. And at one stage in a really messy negotiation, which was not going well for him for a while, turns out okay. And he just says, money always wins. And it's hard not to think when it comes to something like the Premier League that money won't pretty much always win. I don't understand why the Premier League don't take a stance on this. Well, I do. Sorry, that's the point I've just made. I totally understand why the Premier League have not taken a stance on this. But they could, they really could.
They could, but they know the can of worms that it would open. That's the problem, isn't it? They could take a stance on this one. Yeah, but okay, you stay. Well done. Applaud them. Right, here's the next one. There's the next one. There's the next one. There's the next one. And suddenly your Premier League's very, very, very different from what it was before. And then opening up that particular can of worms, if you're the Premier League, where we are just now, there's lots of people, morally I wouldn't argue with them, but lots of people were saying, well, you do that, and it's a completely different beast at the end of it. And some of it definitely won't survive to the level it is just now. So there was a phrase I was going to use there, but it's not the right phrase. In fact, it's an offensive phrase, but they're not helping themselves, and turkeys don't vote for Christmas is a healthier way of saying that.
So how will this play out then? These kind of takeovers will just continue over the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, soft power is such a massive thing in world politics at the moment. Everybody has used it to a greater or lesser extent. But the people that are wanting to use it just now, you look at the owners of Manchester City or whoever, you just PSG, you just need to look around. There's plenty of people out there who want the soft power. The Chinese would like some soft power as well. The softest of soft power is a Premier League football club, because you get your name in there. It's a kind of, I'm not saying it's a cuddly organisation to be involved in, but it's a very, very popular sport. In fact, it is the world sport now. So, it's almost, if you underline where the biggest soft power is in the world just now, it's hard to see anything more obvious. Maybe things are changing now. Maybe they should start looking at National Health Services and say that's where the good soft power is, and that's where the real heroes are. But we know it's not going to work like that. That's where it is. That's where they're going to sell themselves, and that's how they're going to get themselves, looking cleaner.
Yes, and associated with different things. I mean, if you say to lots of people now, Abu Dhabi, a huge number of people will say Man City, beautiful football. There is a reason they're pursuing this tactic. So the players and the NHS and Matt Hancock and various Tory ministers had a real kerfuffle over the last while. I'm sure you were watching with interest. The players, as I suspected they would all along, decided ultimately to trust themselves, and they set up their own fund, and they're hoping to raise 4 million for the NHS. It didn't have to be taken off their salaries via the clubs and directed straight to the NHS. They took control of the situation after, frankly, you would have to say the majority of stakeholders around them turned the whole situation into a fiasco and a bit of a witch hunt.
Yeah, and it was never good. Everyone said it's the simplest thing in the world, just give 30% of your wages away. To whom? Where? Who's going to be in charge of this? Do you give it back to your clubs? Then that could just be a way of saving money, someone would think. Should you be giving that to the NHS over in the UK? Well, wait a minute. Some of those guys don't come from this country. They come from, other countries, and they would like to give their monies to those countries who need it, maybe even arguably more than a first world country like the UK that's got a very good health service in comparison to many others. There's many people that think, well, wait a minute, I'm already giving 10%, 15%, 20% of my wages to funds, foundations, my family, as in, a family from a different country that they've come from, and you're saying you want 30% on top of that. Somebody said to me another one the other day, which was a really interesting one, and it was good economics actually. And it was okay then, you say every player has to give 30%, right? Is that top line or is that after tax? Okay then, what if that player happens to be a divorced player and he's given 50% of his money already to his wife? So that's 80% of his money you want to give away. What if he's got a foundation? Guys actually earning negative money at this point in time, and it doesn't make any sense. So trying to do a carte blanche way of organising it is silly to do that. What it needed is discussion and debate. It was not helped by the British politicians, Knight and Hancock particularly, basically calling out footballers and blaming them and making them the scapegoats. I'm fine if you do that, Matt Hancock. You do that all you like. But I want you to be doing it to the bankers, and I want you to be doing it to Amazon, and I want you to do it to Google, and I want you to do it to Microsoft, and I want you to keep on doing it to all of these people who don't pay their taxes either. The footballers, at least, are paying their taxes. So, aim at those people as well. Aim at the fund managers. Aim at those people that are earning even more than the footballers. But to go and just say, yes, it's the footballers that are the ones that should be doing it more than anyone else, they will do it. They'll do their part. They'll add whatever it is that they're going to add to it. But I thought it was... It struck me as they were deflecting, and there was a lot of deflecting going on at that point in time. Happily, it's had a good effect. The footballers and many footballers will give some money to very, very good causes. So it's had a good effect, and I'm kind of pleased with that. And the one group of people I'm not mourning at is the media. I really like the way the media have dealt with it. I think they've been really good. Generally, they've just reported it, and okay, they've hyped up a bit. But the good side is, the monies will go to areas that need it, and whether that trickles down to the lower edges of the game, whether that goes to areas of health, etc., whether it goes to local communities. I know that Norwich have helped their local community, and various clubs are doing that as well. That's absolutely fine. But the grandstanding stuff about shouting, saying you've got to take 30% of your wages off, and then not giving any detail or reasoning and thought behind it, that was just unacceptable.
In terms of a return, we're not going to establish a return date here or what's going to happen, but it's been quite interesting to watch the toing and froing and how things have developed over the last couple of days. There was a sense on Friday when the Premier League's clubs met that they were going to seriously discuss drawing a line at the 30th of June. That, contractual law says that despite FIFA guidelines, say, you can extend contracts which are up on the 30th of June, player contracts, that is, you can't. And contractually and legally, players are under absolutely no obligation to stay at a club past the 30th of June. So the Premier League clubs met. There was talk that 9 of the required 14 Premier League clubs were ready to draw a line at 30th of June. And come what may, be that null and voiding the season or some kind of Duckworth-Lewis method of establishing who wins the league and who gets relegated and all of that mess. Now, ultimately, that hasn't passed or happened. But I do detect, I don't know what you're hearing or seeing, I do detect a slight softening in the attitude of many to effectively not finishing out the Premier League season. I think that's a more realistic possibility than it felt even 10 days ago.
Yeah, and to go back to your original chat with me at the start here, follow the money. where's the money coming from? If you follow the money, you'll get the answer. The money's coming from the television companies. If the television companies say, by the way, we want a quarter of our money back for this season, and we want it now because you're not finishing the season, you've got a problem. And I don't know if the Premier League can hack that. I don't know if they can hack that financially at all. So, you know, we all want it to be fair. We all want it to be reasonable. We all want it to be done the right way. Yes, you can go a way of saying, right, it finishes here. We can do null and void, which seems a bit odd. You can do it the average amount of points, you know, and average it up, and it probably sees the same teams going down and the same teams winning leagues, etc. However, they will only do this. They will only do this if they know it's financially viable to do it. If they find out that they do that and then they don't get the monies in from various advertising agreements, particularly television monies, etc., and that blows a big hole in their budgets and they're unable to cope with it, then they won't do that. They will try and find another way around it. Everybody loves to talk about the idea of sporting integrity. It's not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to the finance. So if Sky, BT or whatever, you know, those stakeholders that are doing it say, right, okay, just null the season or finish the season here, we'll take the hit. It's probably a no-brainer. They'll probably just do it. But I just don't know if that's going to work. I just can't see them doing that. And why should they?
It's a complete mess. And UEFA are weighing in as well to say, regardless of what happens, we want everything put to bed by July 31st because we need August for Champions League. So you've got that pressure coming on them as well. And again, I just don't see a viable way out of this, especially in a way that doesn't compromise the NHS at the moment.
I mean, the numbers have started falling quite noticeably over the last couple of days of the deaths, etc. And you never know in 3 weeks' time. It might be very different. The thing that's getting me slightly is people are saying it takes 6 weeks to get the players up to fitness. Garbage. Just absolute nonsense. Not having that. It's just not acceptable to say those sorts of things. You can get fit enough to play a game of football in less than 6 weeks. And if you have to squeeze it together over a very short period of time, that is possible too. And if it has to be done behind closed doors, that is possible too. These things are possible if you get that month/5 weeks where you're able to do it. But if there's other people deliberately trying to scupper it by saying you can't do it without a 6 week build up and you need 4 days between games and all the rest of it, then it won't be done. But I just don't think that's absolutely realistic. I think in the extreme circumstances, you can do extreme things.
Absolutely. If they're not fully fit, will live. Pat, listen, hope you and yours are well. I know your daughter's hard at it at the front line, so I hope all that's going well. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully at some stage.
Well, the good news is she has had the virus and she is now over it and she's back to work in the hospital today. So we're all good.
Incredible. Fair play to her. That's amazing. All right, Pat, take care. We'll see you soon.
See you then. Bye-bye.